Hello, well it's Wednesday and I've got so many jobs on so many benches. We'll have to come into the chapel and look at this power supply. Now it's been requested yet again that we do one of these banned Taiwanese power supplies from around about 1980, 1981, and these were banned because, not because they were not good, but because they were unsafe. Not that they're going to catch fire, but they were unsafe. To get that into picture, things like the fuse holder. The fuse holder needs to be out when you unscrew that. The fuse must come with it, and in this case, it stays behind. So that is live if the fuse hasn't failed. So that was one of the issues. The second thing, this one's okay because we've got to. This is before the time of fitted plugs, and this has got the shrouded plug. So we're going to clean this up. I'll have a look in the plug, see if it's got the right kind of fuse. But one of the triggering reasons for doing yet another of these is somebody said about the upgrading the internal electronics with the extra parts to make it just a little bit more current, which it does. I don't know whether we dare plug this in as it is. I'll tell you what, we will, because it may possibly work. I don't normally do this, but I want to demonstrate a kind of before and after. So we'll put the fuse holder back. The trouble now is transformer operated power supplies like this. They're like 40 quid plus VAT to buy in from the wholesaler. And I don't want to go down the switch mode avenue, just like a lot of people don't want to go down the switch mode avenue. Right, the sockets in here are fused at 3 amps, on circuit breakers, and this plugs at 3 amps. So we will plug it in. And hope for the best and have a multimeter on standby. We're then going to connect it to our power supply test unit, the electronic load. Right, I think we'll switch it on. It lights up. So let's see what volts it's doing. It's doing 13.1, so that's fine. But what we're going to do is to get the power supply tester onto it. Just get this hooked up. Usually they've got the binding post missing. Right, I'll just get that plugged in. Okay, so hopefully we can see the display. I think it's about 1.5 amps these will do. I mean, even today it's all BS, isn't it? 3 to 5 amp. Does it say 5 amps? So how can it be? Right, so we're drawing no current at the moment. So 0.1 amp intervals. Let's put load onto it. So we're now at 0.1 of an amp. So it's 13.2 volts. It's ideal. Need to move that cursor. So half an amp, 13 volts. 1 amp, 12.8 volts. That's it. So your normal receive on a UK CB is going to be around there, which is fine. And then when you get to transmit, it delivered 1.4 amps for a few seconds. And now it won't go beyond 0.6 of an amp. Try and move that to one side. And we'll unplug this. So we should have all the parts in stock. But I think I've said before that about 1.5 amps is the maximum you're going to get out of these. But it can be improved a little bit. Was it 1.8? By adding diodes in. So, it's a bit dropped, isn't it? We'll take the board out, and that's easier said than done as well. We've got this little right angle toolkit that came from Aldi or Lidl. Is it the 8mm one? It is. If I remember rightly, yeah, that's the wrong way. No, that's the wrong way. Everything's the wrong way. And now we've got the inner one moving on its own. Try and get to the other one. So 9 times out of 10 we end up changing these terminal posts, but on this occasion we're not going to have to. Just can't get that quite off by hand. So all we really need to do to these is tighten them up on the inner nut. I did get some of these very, very similar from AliExpress. Fit all the right holes and everything. I think we're changing them on this as well, that won't tighten up. So we're going to change the capacitors and we're going to add 2 diodes. So that already, the print's already there in the printed circuit. So there's no reason not to add them in. So we're going, it is full wave rectified at the moment, but it's going to be able to double the handling. These are 3 amp diodes, so we may as well just add 2 more. And so that is what we're going to do. So I'm going to change the 1, 2, 3 capacitors. I'll tell you what, we could add a second capacitor there as well. So I think that's what we're going to do. So I ended up taking everything out, and then I could run it through the dishwasher, which is what I've done. I'm not going to paint it or anything. It's a 40-year-old power supply. So there we have it. So whilst that was in the dishwasher, I took an opportunity to, because I'd taken the switch out, I put some sleeving on that. So we can put that back. And we're going to put new 4mm connectors on that. Right, so there we are, put back together. I've probably shown you this hot air gun before, which came from Lidl. So for heat shrink tubing, 20 volt battery, which they use on their other tools, and it's absolutely fantastic. So there we go. There's going to be the moment of truth when we power it up. So it's been rewired so that it's safe. So as it was before, let me get this right. The live went to the switch. Seemed to think that it was live to the switch and the switch to the transformer, and the neutral went to the fuse and then to the transformer. So we've now got this fuse holder, which is the safe type. We've got heat shrink tubing on anything that's going to get mains voltage on it, don't need to do the secondary. And we've now got the 2 100 microfarad capacitors replaced down there. I've changed all 4 diodes, and I could have just added 2, but I thought we'll have them all the same. 1N5404s, there could be 1N5400s, 1N5401, 1N5402, and so on. Just higher voltages, but we have 1N5404s in stock here, so I think, what are they, 400 volts? Bit of an overkill, but the 3 amp diodes, so we've now got 4 of those in place instead of the 2. So it's got a fighting chance that it's actually going to be able to surge at 3 amps. It's not going to do 3 amps. And then we've changed the 2, there was one before, it was 2200 microfarads at, I think it was 25 volts. We've replaced those at 35 volts. And because there's space for 2 on the printed circuit board, we've fitted 2. So the 2 capacitors down there, just replaced like for like, 100 microfarads. The 4 diodes, there were 2 before, now there's 4. The 2 capacitors, there was 1, there's now 2. So 2200 microfarads, 35 volts. So that's all it is. And as long as you get the polarity right, and it's exactly the same, these all face the same way, the negatives to the bottom on these capacitors, it's time for us to plug it in. These are new terminals entirely. I decided to do that. They weren't tightening properly with the originals. So get that. And I say it's been through the dishwasher, so it won't be hatching out dodgy eggs. We had a friend who bought a power supply which hatched out on his carpet. So if I get the multimeter back, the good thing about this, it was on. That's the LED. That could possibly do with a bit of hot glue on it. So it's lighting up. Chances are it's spot on. I did check the Zener. I think they're 14.8 volts. I think I did test it, and it read that on our Zener tester. I got out the Zeners in case it needed replacing. So I've got 13.3 volts. That's what it does, offload. So I think we're exactly where we were before. We're not going to change because the Zener's the same. So now hook up. Let's put the heat shrink tubing back. We'll now hook back up the test unit. Try and get them both in shot without getting my fingers in it. Not that that should matter now. Okay, so we're not doing anything. Okay, so 13.4 volts. So originally when we powered it up, it did 1.5 amps and then it shut down. Subsequently after that, it would only do 600 milliamps without shutting down. So new capacitors, hopefully we're all spot on. So see. So we'll put it onto the load, 100 milliamps, 600 milliamps, 13 volts, 12.98, 1 amp, 12.96, as a lot of UKCB radios will be. And then some of the hefty ones, not because they do better transmit power, but because they're less efficient. We've got 1.5 amps there and it's doing 12.8 volts. So that's fine. So hopefully now, I'm just going to feel the temperature of the output transistor and feel the temperature of the heat sink to make sure it's transferring the heat. I could have taken precautionary action there to change the thermal heat compound, but felt no reason to do that. That's 1.5 amps. So let's see where it shuts down or fails. 12.8, 12.78, 12. So we're now at 2 amps, it's still doing 12.7, isn't it? Two 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 amps, do 12.5 volts. And at 3 amps, it's not really, that's it, it's 2.9 amps. So it's a bit nearer the 3 amp that it reckons it is with the extra capacitors. And it's like they put the holes in for a kind of deluxe model, but gave everybody the El Cheapo one. So I'm pleased with that. This is the 240 transformer. It's coded 26240. I'm assuming that means 26 volts, 240 volts. 26 volt output, 240 input. Because a lot of these are 220 volts. So there we go. I will put it on the PAT tester. You don't need to see that. We've done it time and time again, but there we are. Put that on the PAT tester. And there we have a usable power supply. So just to recap, 2 extra 1N5404 diodes, 1 extra capacitor. But you need to change all the capacitors because these are 40 years old, they need changing. Not an expensive thing to do. That's probably £2 worth of parts. So I'll put the lid on it and just waiting for parts for that EM27. That's 1 screw on the floor. I don't actually open the post here, Mr. Chippy opens the post. And he does that about 8 o'clock in the evening. So I think we've had a delivery from RS. So that could be the lamps. So I got on to nights. If you remember, I've got dodgy volume control and squelch control on EM27. And I got on to nights. because they were advertising that they had them. I put an order in for a pair, and he emailed me back and said, unfortunately, he hasn't got any. When he came to look, he thought he had, but he hadn't. So order was cancelled. So we've got to be able to clean or repair or whatever the controls that's already in there, which is a shame. So apart from the screw that's on the floor, which I will definitely find, we've rescued another of those Eurosonic Eurosonic power supplies of the band type from Taiwan from 1980. So remember that we don't normally plug these in. It was just part of the demonstration. I don't feel they're safe to plug in without those modifications. So thank you for watching.